Get me thinking 1.3. The objective of this lesson is to recognize repeated individuals or groups of individuals in a comparison context. Now, if this sounds confusing, I am basically just talking about repeated identities. So let's move on to an example. Okay, so basically, if you look at this picture here, I have three people: John, Sally, and Alice. If I say that John has twice as much money as Sally, I'm comparing John and Sally. And if I say that John has twice as much as Alice, I'm comparing John and Alice. So since I'm comparing them with two different people, I will have two different types of units, right? But ultimately, I know that John's amount of money is still the same. Whether I compare with Sally or whether I compare with Alice, John's amount is still the same. If he has $30, no matter who I compare with, he will still have $30. Okay, let's move on to another question so that you can see the concept clearer. In this question, Wilson had twice as many stickers as Desmond, so my model would look like this. Alright, and later on, I continue to say that Desmond had twice as many stickers as Stephen. So you notice that in this question, there is one person's name who is repeated. And who is it? Yes, it's Desmond. So now, in the second sentence over here, Desmond had twice as many stickers as Stephen, which means Desmond is 2 units and Stephen has 1 unit. However, many of you always make the mistake by drawing another unit here to represent Desmond. Remember, Desmond's amount of stickers remains the same no matter who I compare with. Even when I compare with Wilson, even when I compare with Stephen. So instead of adding 1 unit to form 2 units, what can I do without changing the amount of stickers that Desmond have? Very good. We learned in class that we will actually have to cut the model in the middle so that I have 2 units. So now I have 2 units to represent the second sentence. So 2 units for Desmond and Stephen has 1. Alright, now that everything is perfect, we can combine all 3 of them together. But before we can move on, we need to cut everything up equally. Okay, and the next sentence tells us the difference between Wilson and Stephen. So from this model, you can see that Wilson has 6 units and Stephen has 1 unit. So the difference would be 5 units. So from here, we can already find our total. So starting from the only given number 35, 5 units represents 35. 1 unit is 35 divided by 5. And to find everything, I just add up all the units. So 6 units for Wilson, 2 units for Desmond, and 1 unit for Stephen. So altogether, that would be 9 units. So 9 times 7 is 63. So if you still don't understand this question or I went too fast, you can always replay the video. And you can try Get Me Thinking, page 31, question 2a, because it's similar. Moving on, in a cookie eating competition, Aisha ate 4 times as many cookies as Bian and twice as many as Celine. So this question, I am comparing Aisha with Bian, Aisha with Celine. So the person who is repeated here is Aisha. Okay, don't worry if you're confused. Then let's look at this part of the question first. Aisha ate 4 times as many cookies as Bian, so my model will look like this. And then later on, the next part of the sentence continues talking about Aisha having 3 times as many, eating 3 times as much as Celine. So my model will look like this. Okay, so I have Aisha comparing with Bian, Aisha comparing with Celine. Okay, but I cannot, if I move on, it says that Aisha ate 88 more cookies than Celine. I can't put this difference straight away in this model. Okay, so since Aisha has the same number of units. Aisha is supposed to have the same number of units. So if I have 4 units represented here and 3 units represented here, how can I make them the same number of units? So you can think about the lowest common multiple. So I have 4 units here and 3 units here. So what would be the lowest common multiple of 4 and 3? So if I were to list down the multiples of 4, 4, 8, 12, 16, and the multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9, 12, I realize that the lowest common multiple is 12, which means that I can cut everything here into 12 parts and everything here into 12 parts. Okay, so let me show you an example. So if I cut every unit here into 4 parts, I will have 12, right? So I can cut Celine up here into 4 parts too. So I have 12 units here. Now I am going to make this bar here into 12 units too. If I have 4 units, how many must I cut each unit into to get 12? I have to cut them into 3, right? Because 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, so now that all my units are equal, I can put Celine's units together with this model. So I have 4 units for Celine, so I'm going to put it over here, and it will look like that. Alright, so from here, I can now use the difference given in the question. So Aisha ate 88 more cookies than Celine in the competition. So that would be the difference. Okay, so Aisha has 12 units and Celine has 4 units here. So the difference would be 8 units. And 8 units represents 88. So from here I can find 1 unit. 88 divided by 8, I get 11. And Aisha has 12 units altogether. So the last step would be 12 unit represents 12 times 11, 132. So Aisha ate 132 cookies. Let's move on to the next question. Now it's similar. In a cookie eating competition, Aisha ate twice as many cookies as Bian and 3 times as many as Celine. So similar to the previous question, Aisha ate twice as much as Bian and Aisha ate 3 times as many as Celine. Alright, so who is the person repeated in this question? Similarly, Aisha is being repeated in this question, which means that the amount here and the amount over here in this model has to be the same. But they're obviously not the same now because there are 3 units here and there are 2 units here. So I need to find the lowest common multiple, which is 6, right? 3 times 2 is 6. If I list it down, my common multiple is 6. So to make Aisha into 6 units over here, I have to split each one into 3. Can you see that? 3 times 2 is 6. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to cut B up into 3 parts too. Next one, if I look at this model, I want Aisha to be 6 units too. So I will cut each into 2 parts. Okay, so that I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units also. Alright, so now I have 6 units for Aisha here, and I have 6 units for Aisha here too. So now that it is the same units, I can bring Celine's 2 units over here. So that's easier to compare. Alright, so I can actually ignore this model on the right hand side now, because everything here in this model is now equal. Alright, now that it's equal, I can make use of the difference in the question. Aisha ate 88 more cookies than Celine. So in this model, Aisha has 6 units and Celine has 2 units. So the difference would be from here to here, right? So the difference would be from here to here. Okay, so for this question, the difference would be 4 units. Okay, so from here you start off with 4 units, represents 88. Okay, and I'm sure you know how to continue from here. You will find 1 unit. Okay, and after you find 1 unit, you can find Aisha, which is 6 units. Alright, okay, let's move on. Now this question is found in your Get Me Thinking book. It looks challenging because there's a figure given, but the concept still remains. A figure is made up of a rectangle and a square. The length of the rectangle is 3 times its breadth, but 4 times the length of the square. Now if you're confused, slow down. I'll break up the question for you. The length of the rectangle is 3 times its breadth. So I will draw my model first. LR stands for length of the rectangle, and BR stands for breadth of the rectangle. Why must I emphasize that it's a rectangle? Because in this figure, there is a square. So I don't want to confuse the length of the rectangle and the length of the square. Okay, so same thing. They are also comparing the length of the rectangle to the length of the square. So the length of the rectangle now is 4 times the length of the square. So I'm going to draw that on another side. Okay, length of rectangle, LR, is 4 times the length of the square, LS. Okay, and in this question, you notice that they are giving you one number here, 60, which is the perimeter of the rectangle is 60 cm longer than the perimeter of the square. So they are giving you the difference between the perimeter. Okay, and you realize that whatever you have in the model now is not the perimeter. They are the lengths and the breadths. So you know that you are still a little far away from the answer. Okay, so from here, same thing. Do you see that the repeated identity is the length of the rectangle? Yeah, so what we need to do is we need to cut them up. So we need to find the lowest common multiple. Alright, so I have 3 units here and I have 4 units here. So the lowest common multiple of 3 and 4 is 12. Right, we had a similar question before. So I'm going to cut them up into 12 parts. So for the first one, over here, I have to cut them up into 4 parts each, so that I get 12 units. Okay, I do the same thing for the breadth of the rectangle. And over here, I already have 4 units, so I want to have 12. So 12 divided by 4, each one will have 3. 3 parts, 3 parts, 3 parts, 3 parts. Alright, now that my length of rectangle is 12 units for both, and they are equal, which means I can bring this 3 units of the length of a square over here. Correct? Okay, let's move it over. So I move it over here. Alright, now that I have this, I am nearing my answer. Now I'm given the perimeter of the rectangle. So if you try to recall, perimeter of a rectangle is length plus breadth plus breadth. Okay, so according to the question, the length is here, which is 12 units. The breadth of the rectangle is 4 units. So 12 units of length plus another 12 units of length plus 4 units of breadth plus 4 units of breadth gives you 32 units. This is the perimeter of the rectangle in units. Now let's look at a square. It's over here. We are only given the length of a square, but it's more than enough because you know that a square has 4 equal sides, right? So to find the perimeter of the square is just 4 times of the length. So since the length of a square is 3 units, then if I have 4 sides, that would be 3 times 4, 12 units. Okay, I'm almost there. Back to the question, they give us the difference between the perimeter of the rectangle and the square. So let's find the difference. So the rectangle's perimeter is 32 units and the square's perimeter is 12 units. So the difference is 20. So 20 units represents the 60 centimeters. So 1 unit is 3, and therefore 3 units, which is the length of the square, is 9, and